Well, a big focus. Vladimir Putin said he is prepared to meet Donald Trump whenever, indicating potential openness to the talks to end the war in Ukraine. Speaking at his annual hours-long press conference, the Russian leader said Moscow is ready for compromises. In fact, Kremlin sources believe Putin is aiming for a ceasefire deal that would force Kyiv to give up on its NATO ambitions and limit the size of its army, as per reports. But only a fraction of modern wars have ended in negotiated settlements, and any resolution seems unlikely when one side thinks it can win outright. Some geopolitical analysts argue that before any negotiations, Washington and its allies must help Ukraine strengthen its position, which is a sentiment echoed by top officials in Kyiv this week as well. Just listen in to what the Russian president had to say.
Отношения друг друга и как мы делаем, основано на полном доверии. Ну, во-первых, я не знаю, когда мы с ним встретимся, да, потому что он об этом ничего не говорит. Я с ним вообще не разговаривал более 4 лет, и я готов к этому, конечно, в любое время. Готов буду и ко встрече, если он захочет этого.
Well, Ray Locker joins us for further clarity on the matter. Thanks so much, Ray, for making time for us as always. Now, what does this sudden shift in tone indicate about Russia's current position in the war? And would you argue that it's a genuine offer for peace or a strategic maneuver?
I think it's a strategic maneuver. It means that Donald Trump is going to be president in about a month, and Vladimir Putin knows that he can pretty much get what he wants from Trump. It's interesting that he's talking about compromising with Trump, not compromising with Ukraine. He already knows that Trump doesn't really want to support Ukraine, and so he's going to get what he wants if he deals with Trump and cuts out Ukraine.
But Ray, Putin says he is willing to meet with Trump after years of absolutely no communication. Does this actually signal a thaw in US-Russia relations, or is it a calculated move by Putin to influence US politics during a crucial period of transition?
Oh, I think it's a calculated move by Putin to influence U.S. policies during the transition. I mean, he's had interactions with Trump already, and so he knows what he's going to get. And it's not surprising that he thinks he's going to get what he wants more than he would have from Joe Biden or Kamala Harris.
And Ray, if Trump were to meet Putin, how would that actually be perceived globally? Could it reshape U.S. foreign policy towards Russia? Also, what risks might it pose to NATO and Ukraine's security?
It would signal to NATO and Ukraine that the United States can no longer be relied upon, that Trump would be willing to run over and meet with Putin anywhere at any time and essentially do what he had done before, which is give Putin what he wanted. Maybe the fighting would stop, but I don't think it would come at an advantage to Ukraine, certainly. At the very best, they would lose a bunch of territory, and the rest of the world would know, oh, well, you can't count on Trump. He's not going to help you.
Well, Ray, thanks so much for joining us with your insights as always. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when things progress. Meanwhile, after years of telling the public that the United States has about 900 troops in Syria, the Pentagon has revealed that there are approximately 2,000 soldiers there. That's double the previous estimate. In fact, spokesperson Pat Ryder said the additional US forces have been in Syria since before the ouster of former President Bashar al-Assad this month, though he did not specify a time frame. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is sending top diplomats to Damascus to meet Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, the leader of the Islamist rebels that toppled Syria's dictator, but which are designated a terrorist group by the United States. Meanwhile, Israel has launched widespread airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, killing at least 9 people in the port city of Hodeidah, and threatened more attacks against the group, which has launched hundreds of missiles at Israel over the past 1 year. Now, according to Israeli media, dozens of combat jets, along with fueling and intelligence aircraft, took part in the raids. But there had been reports beforehand that Israel was planning to hit Yemen with force after a recent increase in Houthi attacks, including 2 just in the past week. But here's what the Israeli Prime Minister had to say.
חמאס, חיזבאללה, משטר אסד בסוריה, החות'ים הם כמעט הזרוע האחרונה שנשאר לציר הרשע של איראן. הם לומדים והם ילמדו בדרך הקשה שמי שפוגע בישראל משלם על כך מחיר כבד מאוד.
In fact, Netanyahu in his statement has said that after Hamas, Hezbollah and the Assad regime in Syria, the Houthis are almost the last remaining arm of Iran's axis of evil. This, as Doctors Without Borders has accused Israel of ethnic cleansing in Palestine's Gaza in a report documenting the 14-month war. This report documents 41 attacks on MSF staff, including airstrikes on health facilities and direct fire on humanitarian convoys. The NGO has said that it was forced to evacuate hospitals and health centers on 17 occasions. In fact, MSF's report entitled Gaza, Life in a Death Trap said, the siege of the Palestinian territory has drastically reduced humanitarian aid, with only about 37 trucks authorized daily in October 2024, compared with 500 trucks before the war. Well, let's get you a crucial update from France now, where Gisèle Pellicourt has paid tribute to sexual violence victims still fighting for recognition in society after her ex-husband and 50 other men were found guilty in the biggest rape trial in French history. In fact, her ex-husband, Dominique, one of the worst sex offenders in modern French history, was sentenced to 20 years in prison for drugging her and inviting dozens of men to rape her in her home in the south of France for almost over a decade over their marriage. Now, as political leaders hail the trial as a turning point in the battle against rape culture and victim shaming, Pellicourt, who's 72 years old, has said that she had never regretted her decision to waive her right to anonymity in order to hold the trial in public. She said outside the court that on the final day of the months-long trial, she was thinking of the unrecognized victims whose stories often remain in the shadows. In fact, she said, "I want you to know that we share the same fight." NDTV's Ross Cullen joins us from Paris with the lowdown.
Well, after 3.5 months, one of the most high-profile trials that France has ever seen has come to a conclusion. Judges in the southern French city of Avignon giving their verdicts on Thursday, finding all the defendants guilty. Now, the man at the heart of this trial, Dominique Pellicourt, the former husband of Gisèle Pellicourt, sentenced to 20 years in jail, the maximum sentence. That was the length of time that the prosecutors had asked the judges to apply, and they have handed down that 20-year sentence, of which he's likely to serve about 2/3 of that time behind bars, and his lawyer also has not ruled out appealing against that sentence. All of the other defendants were found guilty and given custodial sentences ranging between 5 and 13 years. However, some of the men, at least 3 of them, did walk free on Thursday because they've already completed the required time behind bars during the trial. Now, Gisèle Pellicourt was speaking after the court proceedings on Thursday. She thanked her supporters, saying that she respected the decision, respected the verdicts from the judges, and that she never regretted her decision to go public. This trial could have been behind closed doors, but Gisèle Pellicourt wanted it to be in the public domain. The facts of the case are harrowing. She was drugged repeatedly by her husband for a period of 9 years. He then raped her, and he also recruited men online to come to the family house and attack Gisèle Pellicourt. So the trial has concluded now, but there are the possibilities that the prosecution might appeal against those sentences, asking for them to be reviewed and potentially increased.
The case has signaled that shame has changed sides in France. With that, let's take you to the United States, where the US could face a government shutdown. This is in less than 24 hours, and Elon Musk is pushing for it. US President-elect Donald Trump followed his calls to reject a bill that would have kept the government funded through March, but without it, some public services could be put off hold. So what's it all about, and how serious would it be? Well, we have with us Ray Locker for further clarity. Ray, thanks so much for joining us on this update as well. Now, if US lawmakers fail to extend this deadline that the government will begin, then the government, we hear, will begin a partial shutdown. What are the significant impacts of this? Could it interrupt funding? Could it disrupt everything from border enforcement to cutting off paychecks?
Oh, yeah, for a whole slew of government employees. I mean, unless you're in a critical infrastructure job like border security, transportation security, the Federal Aviation Administration, you're not going to get paid. Your government website is going to shut down. There's a lot of things that we depend on that won't happen.
Right, Ray. But with the shutdown potentially threatening the holiday season coming right before it, How much should Congress and the US President-elect consider the economic repercussions as far as workers, businesses, and the general public are concerned then?
Well, I think a lot of people are considering those implications, and that's why they voted for the previous funding bill that was a bipartisan bill that would have kept the government open, and the Senate would have approved it, and we wouldn't have had to worry about this for a while. It was only belatedly after Elon Musk tweeted that the bill shouldn't pass that Donald Trump became engaged in it and said, don't vote for it. And now the second version of the bill has failed. It didn't even come close to getting a majority of Republicans. I mean, a majority of the whole House, most Republicans did for it, but I mean, a lot of them didn't vote for it. So we're nowhere.
Right, and also, Ray, we're hearing that an estimated about 875,000 workers could be furloughed. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's going to affect so many more people than that. Because if a government agency is spending money on your business and that money stops coming, then you don't get paid. And so much of government work is done by companies that are contractors for the government. Those people lose revenue. They may lose their jobs. When we had a previous shutdown, end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I knew a number of people who didn't have work or lost job opportunities because there was no federal money coming.
Right. Well, if US lawmakers fail to extend this deadline, which was for Friday night, the government will begin a partial shutdown in the United States that could interrupt funding for everything from border enforcement to national parks and also cut off paychecks, as Ray Locke is also highlighting. Thanks so much, Ray, as always, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Meanwhile, the United States government has urged the Supreme Court to dismiss a petition filed by Mumbai attack convict Tahawwur Rana, who is a Canadian national of Pakistani origin, against his extradition to India. Now, India, as you know, is seeking the extradition of Mr. Rana as he is wanted in the 2008 Mumbai terror attack case. Mr. Rana, who's currently lodged in a jail in Los Angeles, faces charges for his role in the Mumbai attacks and is known to be associated with the Pakistani-American terrorist David Coleman Headley, one of the main conspirators of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. Well, in other news, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri will embark on a 3-day trip to Mauritius beginning today in what would be the first high-level engagement between the two sides after formation of the new government in the island nation. The External Affairs Ministry has said that Mr. Misri's visit reflects the priority that India attaches to its relations with Mauritius under its SAGAR, which is the Security and Growth for All in the Region vision, Africa Forward policy, and also the commitment to the Global South. Meanwhile, India has for years been the country receiving highest remittances globally, and this year was no different. India retained the #1 spot of being the country which saw the maximum amount of monetary inflow, which is $129 billion from its diaspora. Now, as per the latest figures that have been compiled by World Bank economists, India, which topped the list of recipient countries for remittances in 2024, received an estimated inflow of $129 billion. Mexico came second with $68 billion. China came third at $48 billion. And the Philippines came fourth at $40 billion, followed by Pakistan, which came fifth with $33 billion in remittances. Now, as far as India is concerned, India has steadily been receiving remittances of more than $100 billion each year. This is for the last 5 years, except 2020. Why was that? Well, 2020 is when COVID-19 had peaked. That year, India saw an inflow of $83 billion. But in the past 10 years, India's overall remittances grew by 57%. And in total, this is between the year 2014 and 2024, India has received nearly $1 trillion only in remittances. That's about $982 billion to be precise. Well, switching tracks, Belgium will in January become the first European Union country to ban sales of disposable vapes because of concerns about their use among children and also the environmental damage they can cause. This move is part of an anti-tobacco drive in the Western European country, where government data shows that most young smokers start the habit with electronic cigarettes, or as you call them, vapes, rather than regular tobacco cigarettes. In fact, I must also inform you that Germany and France are working on laws to ban single-use vapes. Britain, which is no longer an EU member, will ban their sale in June. And Belgium hopes that this ban will reduce the environmental impact of discarded single-use vapes that can cause plastics, chemicals, and also has a non-rechargeable battery. Well, as always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Prime Minister Modi and Britain's King Charles III spoke on the phone, reaffirming the India-UK partnership and exchanging greetings for Christmas as well as the New Year. In views on the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Meanwhile, the confusion surrounding the venue of the ICC Champions Trophy 2025 is finally over. After months of delay, the International Cricket Council finally officially declared the venues for the elite event, and the ICC Men's Champions Trophy will be played across Pakistan and a neutral venue. This is as per the ICC official statement. This means India will play its matches in a neutral venue, including the knockout games, if it qualifies. Thanks for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.